The galaxy was filled with powerful civilizations, thousands of species that had mastered space travel, conquered stars, and built weapons that could tear moons apart. Among them stood the Galactic Union, a council of the strongest and oldest empires, where power spoke louder than words. In this grand stage of titans, humans were nothing more than newcomers. Earth had only discovered faster-than-light travel a few decades ago and barely scratched the surface of galactic knowledge. Their ships were smaller, slower, and weaker compared to the war machines that cruised the space lanes. Most alien species saw humans as curious, friendly, and energetic, but not dangerous. They welcomed Earth's entry into the Union politely, but behind closed doors, they laughed. Humanity was seen as soft, fragile, and hopelessly behind. The war-hardened Thalrak Empire, known for their brutal strength and deep hatred for weakness, saw humans as little more than a joke. Their admiral, Vec, once said during a war council, "Earth ships are like flying toys. Let them join, they'll run when they see real fire." His words echoed through the Union halls, and most didn't disagree. Humans hadn't fought a real space war. They hadn't lost 1,000,000 soldiers in a single battle. They hadn't seen what it meant to face extinction on a galactic scale. To the Thalrak and others, humans had no right to be at the table of giants. Still, Earth tried. Their ambassadors attended every meeting, their researchers worked day and night to understand alien technologies, and their people remained hopeful. But deep inside Earth's hidden bases, far from the Union's eyes, a different story was unfolding. Some humans were not satisfied with being seen as weak. They knew the galaxy wouldn't always remain at peace. They knew that someday, Earth would have to prove its worth, not with words, but with strength. And so, in silence, a secret project began. They called it Project Valkyrie, not just a ship, but a symbol of change. It was unlike anything Earth had built before. It didn't follow the Union's designs. It wasn't big or heavily armed. But what it had was something no other species had dared to try, a new kind of engine powered by the Darkfold. It wasn't just faster, it was unpredictable, untrackable, and dangerous to anyone who didn't understand it fully. The humans didn't even know if it would work. But they had no choice. They had to try. Captain Elise Morgan was chosen to lead the prototype. She wasn't a war hero or a politician, she was an engineer who had spent years designing engines. She knew the ship better than anyone else, and when the time came to test it, she didn't hesitate. She stood on the launch deck, looking at the sleek, dark body of Valkyrie, her heart pounding with fear and excitement. No one saluted her. No banners flew. The launch wasn't even broadcasted. It was a quiet mission. Watch. Record. Don't engage. If it works, we'll know. If it doesn't, no one will blame you. Those were her orders. But deep down, Elise knew she might be part of something much bigger. Meanwhile, the Thalrak Empire had started expanding again. They claimed a small mining world near Earth's colony of New Dawn. The Union warned them to back off, but Vec didn't listen. He wanted to remind the galaxy who still held power. He sent a fleet not massive, but large enough to wipe out any colony. The humans panicked. Their main fleet was too far. The colony's defense grid was old and weak. The governor sent a desperate message to Earth: "We won't survive the night." In the control room back on Earth, the leaders looked at the blinking signal, unsure of what to do. Then someone whispered, "Send the Valkyrie." There was silence. Then a nod. Elise got the message. ASE, the prototype ship moved silently through the void. Elise sat in the cockpit, gripping the controls. The ship didn't hum or shake like other crafts. It moved like a ghost, bending space around it in strange ways. The stars twisted outside her window, and the computer whispered warnings about untested systems. But she pressed forward. When she reached New Dawn's orbit, the sky was already burning. Thalrak warships rained fire on the colony, and debris floated like ash. The old defense ships were trying to fight back, but they were falling one by one. Elise took a deep breath. This wasn't part of the plan. She was told to observe. But she couldn't just watch people die. She activated the weapons system. It was just one weapon, an energy blade. It wasn't designed for show. It was designed to slice. Valkyrie dove into the battle without warning. One Thalrak ship exploded in silence, cut cleanly in half. Then another. And another. The enemy didn't even know what hit them. Their sensors couldn't track the ship. Their weapons couldn't lock on. In seconds, the tide of battle turned. Elise didn't scream or celebrate. She moved with focus, guiding the ship through fire and wreckage. The Thalrak commander panicked. "It's just one ship." "One ship?" he shouted. But his crew had already seen the truth. This was not a normal ship. This was something else. Something terrifying. Back in the Union's core worlds, the news arrived like a storm. Reports of a human ship destroying a Thalrak fleet spread like wildfire. At first, many didn't believe it. But then the recordings came. Silent footage of a sleek black ship slicing through giants. The Union's generals watched in silence. The Thalrak demanded an explanation. Earth remained quiet. No statements. No threats. Just a quiet message. The Valkyrie is only a prototype. And that silence was louder than any weapon. The decision was made quietly, behind closed doors and under the shadows of doubt. Earth's leaders had grown tired of being underestimated by the Galactic Union, tired of the mocking glances, the patronizing tones, and the soft chuckles whenever humans spoke of defense or strategy. The Thalrak Empire's unprovoked assault on New Dawn had been the final trigger. Though the colony survived, it was only because of Valkyrie, a ship that was never meant to be used so soon. After the battle, questions echoed across Earth's corridors of power. Was humanity ready to reveal its strength? Was it too early to show what they had built in the dark? Yet among all the uncertainty, one truth stood clear. The enemy now knew that Earth wasn't helpless. And more enemies would come. So, the Council ordered the next phase launch another prototype. But this time, no announcements, no recordings, no fanfare. If the galaxy would learn about Earth's growing power, it would learn the hard way. The launch had to be silent. Buried beneath a frozen mountain range in Antarctica, inside a facility known only as Station Black, the engineers and scientists worked day and night without pause. Everything about this new ship was classified: its name, its systems, even its shape. Only a handful of people knew of its existence, and even fewer knew the full plan. Codenamed Phantom, the ship wasn't just a weapon. It was an answer to every insult, every underestimation, every threat Earth had ever faced in the galaxy. Unlike Valkyrie, which relied on a single Darkfold drive and experimental stealth blade, Phantom had layers. It was designed not only to fight, but to disappear, infiltrate, observe, and strike only when it mattered. It carried no large weapons visible from the outside, no flashy lights or markings. It was a ghost wrapped in technology that bent light, scrambled sensors, and even manipulated gravity. The ship didn't roar. When powered, it whispered. Every part of it was built to vanish, to move without being noticed until it was far too late. The pilot chosen for the mission was Lieutenant Cale Rayner, a former test pilot with a mind for tactics and a past full of quiet scars. He wasn't famous. He didn't want to be. That's why he was perfect. Kyle had served in Earth's early exploration program, flown into black holes, and survived plasma storms that had destroyed entire fleets. He was calm, disciplined, and trusted by the engineers who built Phantom. When he arrived at Station Black, he didn't ask questions. He stood in front of the ship, an obsidian shadow shaped like a dagger, and simply said, "Tell me where to go." His mission was simple: launch silently, test all systems in deep space, gather data, and if necessary, intercept any threat before it reached human territory. But he knew there was more. He could feel it in the way the scientists looked at him, in the silence that followed every command. This wasn't just a test. It was a warning wrapped in silence. The night of the launch was colder than usual. The wind howled above the ice, but inside the base, everything was still. No alarms, no lights, just quiet movements and hushed voices. Cale suited up in a sleek black uniform that matched the ship's color. He walked alone through the tunnel that led to the launch bay. Every step echoed in his ears, as if even the walls were holding their breath. Inside the cockpit, the lights remained dim. The ship didn't need much to operate. The dark fold core hummed softly, eager to awaken. Kyle placed his hand on the control pad, and the ship came alive, not with noise, but with presence. It wasn't like flying a normal ship. It felt like becoming part of something more, like slipping into the skin of a creature that knew how to hunt in the dark. He didn't feel fear. He felt ready. As Phantom rose from the underground hangar, the ice above cracked open silently, revealing a patch of night sky. There were no satellites watching. The area had been blacked out for hours. No signal left the station. The world didn't even know what was happening. With a soft pulse, the ship vanished into the clouds, leaving behind no light, no trail, only silence. For the first time, Earth had launched a weapon meant to never be seen, and Kyle was its soul. Once in orbit, he activated the cloak. Space around him twisted slightly, and the stars flickered as if unsure where to place the ship. No radar, no sensor, not even gravitational detectors could track him. He was gone, but the silence wouldn't last. Far across the galaxy, deep in Union space, whispers of Earth's actions had begun to grow louder. Some species feared that humans had discovered something ancient. Others believed they had made a deal with unknown forces. The Thalrak, embarrassed and humiliated by their defeat, sent out secret probes to find Earth's hidden technology. One of those probes had already entered the outer rim of Earth's solar system. It moved like a rock, quiet and cold, but it was armed with advanced scanners and weapons. If it found anything unusual, it would send a signal, and within days, the Thalrak fleet would return. Kyle picked up the probe's trail halfway between Neptune and the Kuiper Belt. His ship didn't alert him with sound. It simply highlighted a faint ripple in the fabric of space. It was enough. He followed it silently, drifting like a shadow. The probe didn't detect him. It moved forward unaware. But Kyle waited. He wanted to learn. What was it scanning? How close would it come? He let it pass Saturn, then Mars, always behind it, unseen. When the probe finally turned toward Earth, he acted. A thin line of energy extended from Phantom, and within a second, the probe was gone. No explosion. No trace. Just silence again. Kyle smiled. The galaxy would have to try harder. Back on Earth, the data streamed into Station Black. Every maneuver, every reading, every moment of the mission was recorded in silence. The scientists stared at the screens, realizing that Phantom was not only a success, it was a message. A quiet one, yes, but a message that would shake the galaxy when the time came. Earth was no longer begging for a seat at the table. It was building its own throne in the shadows. The launch had been silent, but its echo would soon reach far beyond the stars. The silence did not last forever. Though Phantom had returned unseen and Kyle Rayner had delivered every bit of data without a single scratch on the hull, the reality was that the Thalrak probe had failed to report back. Somewhere in the cold depths of space, the enemy realized they had lost eyes on Earth. That silence, to them, was louder than any signal. It meant something had happened, something powerful, something Earth was hiding. While the Galactic Union tried to maintain peace on the surface, beneath that calm, everyone was watching. The Thalrak, burned by defeat and hungry for revenge, decided to send a warning shot. A small but deadly assault fleet broke from their border patrol and raced toward a neutral human outpost near the mining moon X07, where Earth's influence was growing but defenses were still being built. The plan was simple: strike fast, destroy the outpost, leave no survivors. It would look like an accident, an unexplained attack by pirates. No one would prove who was behind it, but Earth would understand the message. The Thalrak wanted fear. They wanted silence to return. Back on Earth, Kale had barely rested when he was called again. The emergency beacon from 07 had arrived late. Communications were jammed, but a final signal had gotten through: one word: incoming. No coordinates. No fleet size. Just a warning. Earth's high command didn't wait. They knew what it meant. Without holding a meeting or issuing a formal response, they contacted Kyle. He was already suiting up before the call ended. There was no debate. Phantom would strike back not in defense, but as a warning of its own. This was no longer about testing. This was war, whispered and fought in the dark corners of the galaxy. Kyle took his seat in Phantom, and as the ship powered up, he felt that familiar calm. There was no fear now. There was only purpose. The journey to X-07 took less than 6 hours using the advanced Darkfold core. Kyle exited slipspace far from the moon, cloaked and silent, watching from a distance. What he saw confirmed everything. 3 Thalrak warships surrounded the small mining outpost, their weapons already charging. They didn't expect resistance. They didn't expect to be watched. The outpost was not military. It had only cargo haulers and mining gear, nothing that could stop a strike. Kale didn't hesitate. He activated the ship's stealth weapon systems, thin precision beams, invisible to sensors, guided by the AI to strike the most critical parts of the enemy's ships. With a silent command, he gave the order. The first Thalrak ship didn't explode, it simply died. Power vanished. Lights blinked out. The engine stopped, and the massive warship floated like a dead whale in space. No alarms. No fire. Just sudden, absolute failure. The second ship reacted, scanning wildly, turning its shields in all directions, but they saw nothing. Kyle moved closer, weaving between asteroid fragments and solar shadows. The second beam cut through the ship's core reactor. Again, no explosion, just silence. The enemy crew never even knew what hit them. Only the third ship remained. It tried to run, sending a desperate signal back toward Thalrak space, but Kale wouldn't let it escape. Phantom moved in close. This time, he switched tactics. A single kinetic spike, launched thin as a needle, moving faster than light. It pierced the ship's bridge and left a hole so perfect the vacuum sucked the command crew into space before alarms could finish sounding. The ship drifted, crippled and leaderless. Kale left it there. Let them find it. Let the Thalrak come and see what remained. Kyle contacted Earth. Strike complete. 07 is safe. But the real message was louder. The galaxy had seen the first strike, not loud, not chaotic, but quiet, surgical, and terrifying. The kind of attack that left enemies confused, paranoid, and afraid to sleep. Phantom had done what no human ship had ever done before: cripple a superior enemy force with 0 losses, 0 noise, and 0 traces. And this was only the beginning. Back at Station Black, the High Command received the footage and locked it deep in the classified vault. They wouldn't share it with the public yet, but whispers began to spread. Stories leaked in bars, among traders, in encrypted channels between mercenary fleets. A ghost ship, dark as the void, had hunted warships and vanished. No one believed it fully yet, but the fear had started. The Thalrak could not hide what happened. Their own surviving officers, broken and shaken, returned with no explanation, just silent eyes and trembling hands. They spoke of shadows, of a ship that moved like smoke and struck like thought. The Thalrak High Commander ordered a blackout on all details, but it was too late. Fear cannot be silenced. Kyle returned home to Earth, landing in darkness again. No applause, no cameras, just nods from his team and a single word from the director: perfect. He knew this was far from over. The strike had been silent, but war was coming. And this time, Earth would not hide. They had been weak once, laughed at and ignored. But now, one ship had changed everything. Kale didn't feel pride or anger. He felt readiness. The silence had been broken. The galaxy heard Earth's whisper, and soon it would hear their voice. The aftermath of the first strike sent quiet tremors across the galaxy, yet no one could explain what really happened at 07, and that confusion became the perfect mask for the truth. Earth had carefully hidden. Rumors spread like wildfire in the darker corners of trade routes and war zones of a human ship that didn't use visible weapons, that moved without detection, that took down 3 Thalrak warships like shadows crushing flame. Some laughed at the story, others feared it, But within Earth's most secure military facility, deep beneath a frozen mountain known only by a code, the real secret waited to be revealed, not to the galaxy, but to a select few who were finally trusted enough to know the truth behind Phantom. Kyle Rayner stood alone in the briefing room, surrounded by screens and silence, waiting for the room to secure itself. And then, without a word, the holograms lit up, showing schematics, timelines, and files marked with the highest classification Project Whisper. It had started 20 years ago, not with war in mind, but with survival. The first alien contact had changed everything. Humans were shocked to find that Earth was considered weak, not even a threat, and their weapons were laughable in the eyes of ancient empires that ruled the stars. Earth had no vast fleets, no planet crackers, no advanced AI armies. They had only one advantage: an understanding of how to stay invisible and how to fight like hunters instead of soldiers. The people behind Project Whisper realized that humans could not win a war by force, but they could make the galaxy bleed through fear. So they built something that was never supposed to exist: a ship powered by quantum shadows, its engine folding space without tearing it, its weapons so precise they didn't explode, they erased. Phantom was more than just a prototype. It was a statement, a warning, and its design came from something even more dangerous, a signal found on the edge of the solar system, one that didn't come from Earth, but something far older. That signal had unlocked new physics, new possibilities, but it also carried a hidden message, one Kale was about to hear for the first time. As the director activated the audio, a deep, ancient voice spoke in a language unknown to any species, yet somehow understandable, like it was inside the mind, not the ears. It said, "They are coming. Not the ones you see, but the ones behind them." Earth had never been the target. The Thalrak and others were just scouts in a much larger game. The real enemy had not arrived yet, but they had already noticed humanity's spark. The reason Earth was mocked was not because it was weak, but because it was unpredictable. It changed fast. It adapted in ways others didn't. And something out there had seen this and feared it. Kyle stared at the data, at the ship that he had flown into silent battle, and now he realized Phantom was not built for war alone. It was a test, yes, but it was also a message to the unknown, a way of saying, Earth is ready. Behind the holograms, another set of coordinates flashed, hidden even from most in command. A second ship was already under construction, this one even faster, even darker, and designed not just for stealth, but for invasion. Earth was not planning to defend forever. They were preparing to strike first when the real war began. Kale didn't speak, but his eyes said everything. He understood now why he was chosen, why no one had told him everything before. It wasn't just about piloting. It was about believing. Earth couldn't afford soldiers who obeyed orders. They needed warriors who understood the future depended on their silence, their patience, and their willingness to do what others feared. As the lights dimmed and the files sealed themselves again, Kyle walked out of the room, not with pride, but with purpose. The galaxy still thought Earth was hiding in shadows, but soon they would understand the truth. The shadows belonged to Earth now. And what hid within them was not weakness, but the beginning of something far more dangerous than anyone had expected. Phantom was only the beginning. The real secret had just been revealed, and the galaxy had no idea what was coming next. The galaxy was no longer the same. After the mysterious human ship, known only as Phantom, erased the Thalrak fleet in complete silence, the great empires began to watch Earth with wary eyes. For centuries, they had mocked humans, calling them fragile and backward, but now their silence was louder than any war cry. Earth did not respond with threats. It didn't hold press conferences or demand respect. It simply disappeared behind the veil of shadows it had created, calm, quiet, and dangerous. Rumors spread that humans had discovered something beyond conventional science, something that could not be detected by even the most advanced sensors. Old powers who once claimed dominance now found themselves second-guessing every signal from deep space. In hidden chambers across the galaxy, alien leaders whispered among themselves, terrified of what they didn't understand. Earth had not asked for war, but it had forced peace through fear. The Thalrak retreated to their home systems, licking their wounds and denying what had happened, but even their own generals questioned whether to ever provoke humans again. Meanwhile, deep inside Earth's command bunkers, Kale Rayner stood at the edge of a massive hangar, staring at the second ship that had just completed its construction. Spectre. Bigger than Phantom, faster, and built using the hidden knowledge decoded from the ancient signal, Spectre wasn't just a ship, it was a message to the galaxy's ruling species. Your time is over. Earth was not trying to become a galactic empire. It was trying to build a balance of future where no species could bully another into silence or slavery. That idea, more than any weapon, was what scared the ancient empires. Humans had no interest in ruling the stars. They simply refused to be ruled. And that defiance was starting to spread. Smaller species, long oppressed by larger powers, started reaching out to Earth in secret, offering alliances, knowledge, and technology in exchange for protection. Earth accepted, not with arrogance, but with understanding. The humans knew what it felt like to be overlooked, to be the weakest voice in a room full of giants. But now, with their silent fleet growing and their message clear, Kale had seen the shift happen with his own eyes. He had flown the first invisible strike, watched as the galaxy reeled in disbelief, and now stood at the center of a rising storm that no one could control. The most powerful species no longer knew who the real threat was. Their alliances crumbled, their spies returned with nothing, and their fleets hesitated on borders they once crossed freely. They were losing not because Earth was the strongest, but because Earth had made strength meaningless in the old way. Power was no longer about numbers or size. It was about who could move unseen, strike without sound, and disappear before the enemy even knew what happened. And humans had mastered that. As Spectre launched for its first silent mission, Kyle didn't feel pride or fear, he felt something deeper, something that came from knowing history had changed forever. The galaxy would no longer be ruled by fear, but by balance. Not because the old powers gave it willingly, but because one small species stood up and rewrote the rules of survival. Earth had become the shadow in the light, the voice in silence, the power behind peace. And though the galaxy didn't know what the future held, one thing was certain: humans were no longer weak. They were the new force behind a very different balance of power.